Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you a project using our zebra stripe cane that we made just the other week. So here's the cane that we are going to be using. It's had a bit of time to rest, so now it's going to be easier to work with, and so we're going to make a really nice bead with it. So I've already done a few test samples, and this is basically what I want it to look like. We're going to have a bail on the back, and then we're going to have cord coming out from this, but this is basically what we're going to be making today, just to give you an idea. Okay, so first thing you want to do is you want to create the black part that is sitting on top of the zebra stripe. And what you're going to need is a sheet of black clay, and I'm using Primo that was run out on the thickest setting of my pasta machine. And you're also going to want a texture. Now I'm using one of the sponge textures that I got from Towards Polymer clay. We'll use the other finer texture in just a minute. But we'll take this, pop our clay on top, and run this through the pasta machine, just like this. Just like that. Then just peel that off and you'll see that it's given me a really nice texture. Just gently place that down in a nice position. I'll bring over this one and I'm gently going to press. You don't really want to use a roller because that will flatten out the other texture that we just put in a little too much. But this texture is just to finely top the top of the texture, the more coarse texture that we had. So you can see it gives it a much more matte look, which is something I'm going for. There we are. Now I'm just going to pick that up. And then I'm going to bring over a piece of souffle, and I'm going to be using cherry pie today. And this is just the red that I have chosen. So you can use any red that you want to, but this is the one that I've chosen today. So you don't have to use souffle, you can use Primo if you want. But I just thought this one looked quite nice. So you're just going to take a bit. I want to just take this, squish it up. There you go. I'm going to run it through the thickest setting, and then I'm going to take it down all the way to my thinnest setting. And I'm left with this strip, which I'm just gently going to place on top of the black here. Then I'm going to bring over a ruler, and I'm going to position that over there. And let me just see. Just got a little something over there. Let me just get rid of that. Don't want that there. There we go. And usually my head will be right over here so I can see exactly what I'm doing. Now what I want to do is I want to have 4 dots, and I'm going to be using the second largest cutter in my small rectangle set. I'll provide a link to that set just so you know which one I'm talking about. This set over here. It's the same one that I used in my Mica frills tutorial. And so I've measured this, and I can fit 4 dots worth in here, and they will be spaced 1 centimetre apart. So I'm going to take this little Kemper cutter that I got from Happy Things, and I'm just going to gently press down, and I'm not going to press down the whole way, I'm just pressing down enough that I'm cutting through the red layer, and I'm cutting at each centimetre mark. And I'm also pressing against the ruler so I get them nice and straight, as you can see. You can see it better than me. Then I'll lift that up and out of the way, and then we carefully lift this up. And this is another reason why I like using souffle, because it makes my life easier with this, but it's much easier to cut them while they're on the clay than place them onto the clay. But other brands of clay would stick really badly. Souffle doesn't stick that bad at all. Now you just want to take a needle tool of some kind and just pick away any remnants of red. And this is where your texture comes in handy, because any little marks that you make with your little tool aren't going to matter because you won't be able to see them. So just clean up around there. Get rid of all these little red bits as much as I can, and then we can cut it out. Okay, then you'll bring over a blade and pick that up off of the tile, and then position it so that these are nice in a way that you can see them, and then you want to cut out your piece. Now my head needs to be right over here so I can see what I am doing. There we are. Then I'll just press down and lift up. We've cut out our first piece. Now I'm just going to set this aside for the moment, and actually before we do that I want to set it so that it stays in exactly the right shape. And I'm just busy pressing in on the edges to get rid of any straggly bits, which I don't want. But now I'm going to bring over my heat gun so that I can set this. And I'm just going to put it onto my first setting. Just like that. And you can bake it if you want, but this is quicker and I just don't see what the problem is with doing it this way. Okay, then I'm going to set the back as well. There we are. Okay, so now I'm just going to put that aside while we work on our zebra piece. Now again, you're going to need a sheet of black Primo run out on the thickest setting of your pasta machine. You're also going to need your zebra print, and now you can use the cane that we made, or the silk screen, or the other sheet that we made. But I'm going to choose to use the cane. And I want a fairly thick piece because we're going to stretch this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it through my pasta machine on the thickest setting first, like that. Then I'm going to take it down to my 5th. That's what it looks like, and you can see I'm stretching it from this side to this side until I get a square shape. I'm now on my middle setting, and I'm going to start stretching it the other way. Like that. And what I'm aiming for is until I can get a rectangle that fits that. So I'm going to take it down one more setting to my 2nd thinnest setting. Okay, and there we are. Then I'll bring that over, lay that on the black, and smooth it out. And then we can choose where we want it to be. But first, what's going to make it easier is to just pop this piece on. And just before we do that, just gently scrape these edges to get rid of any straggle bits that are still there, because you want it completely tidy. There we go. Then we'll bring that. And just before you do that, if you see any bits, like I've got a little hair there that needs to go, just gently get rid of that. There we go. Then I'll pop that down. I want to check if I have enough space. Yep. Okay, now I'm gently going to tap it down. Now because the bottom layer is raw, it will bond. But because this is nice and hard, it's going to stay in its shape while we press it. And then that helps me eye where I want this to be. Okay, then you'll press down. Get the cutter out the way and move that out the way. And just smooth off these edges. Just like that. Don't mess with it too much. And then you can put this tile in the oven. Now if you haven't put it on the tile that's supposed to go in the oven, which I haven't done because this is my working tile, what you can do is you can bring over the heat gun again and you can just set this again. There we are. I'll move that out the way. And now because this piece is fairly thick, you want to let this cool down before you pick it up, otherwise it's going to distort a little bit, because while the clay is soft it can distort. So just wait for it to cool a bit and then I'll pick it up and show you what to do on the back. Okay, so once it is cool, then you want to bring over your tissue blade and gently lift it up. And there you can see it smeared just a little bit on the back, but there we are. And just gently wipe the sides to get rid of any straggles, and then we'll tend to the back. Okay, so now we are going to do the back. So you're going to need a sheet of Polymer black, and this was rolled out on my middle setting of my pasta machine, which is a 4. And then you're going to bring over this texture that we used in the beginning and roll that through the pasta machine. Just like that. Then gently work that off. If it gets stuck a little, that's fine, that's why I use big pieces. Okay, then bring over this piece and press in your texture just to mat it up a bit. Okay, then I'll pick that up, bring over our bead, which I flipped the other way around, and because I set it with the heat gun, you can see at the back is still raw. So if I bring my hand over, hopefully, oops, you can see that I can mark it still. So I'll bring over the texture and I will apply it to the back and gently smooth over so that it will bond nicely. Now bring over my tissue blade and cut out around our bead. There we are. Then I'll lift that up and I'll smooth this texture into place. Then what I'll do is I'll pop it in the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And then I can show you how to finish off the sides. And I think before we pop it in the oven, I actually want to apply a bail, which we should probably do now because we don't want to do it while that clay is cured, so we should do that now. So I'll bring over just a piece of that texture that we had, cut it out again, and then bring over a skewer and I'll just use the skewer to wrap that around, and then once I've wrapped it around, I'll cut off that excess bit, then bring that round and touch it off at the back, And this is the part that is going to rest on the bead, so just make sure that you do get it seam to go away. And then work that off of your skewer and bring it right down to the end over here. And work out where you want this to hang. I'll just find the end, there we go. Then gently press it onto the clay. Because the back's still raw, it'll stick. And that's your bail. Okay, just give it a final look over before you do anything, and then go pop that in the oven. And I'm going to be baking it face down like that on a piece of plain printing paper so that this part doesn't get shiny spots. And then I'll show you what to do with the sides. Okay, so now we are going to do the smear, now that it has been out of the oven. So you're just going to take a piece of black Primo, or whichever clay you're using, warm it up so it's nice and soft, and then pop it into a cylinder shape. Press that against the side of your bead and smear across. And you want to press nice and hard, and this is why you want your clay to be nice and soft. There we go. And then just smooth it out with your finger. And that will create a border. And then just clean up the top here in case you've got any little bits that got stuck. Check the back too. So that's that side, and that's what it will look like versus that side. So you can see that it does make quite a big difference. Then you'll just roll your clay back up into a cylinder, press it against the next side, and smear across. Now you might have to do the smear multiple times to get it to stick. There we go. But you really want to be pressing that onto the bead. Then you'll generally have this little lip. Just take that and smooth that down onto the previous smear. There we go. Just clean up. And sometimes you might see that the smear is a little bit too thick. If it is, just press against it and smear away the excess clay, because you want it to be a very fine border. So you want to have it like this, and you want to barely see that black outline. It just needs to be an outline. Okay, and then you continue all the way around until you get something that looks like this. So you can see it with black the whole way around. And it adds a little bit of a frame. It's such a slight frame that you hardly will notice it, but it does add that little bit of a touch to it. So it's definitely something that you would want to do. So you'd continue smearing, smooth it off with your finger, then pop it back in the oven for half an hour to bake the clay that you have smeared on, and then we can do a little bit of sanding, pop some Renaissance wax on, and get onto the stringing. Okay, so this is out of the oven, and the other one is too, and I've gone ahead and finished this one up by sanding it and putting some Renaissance wax on and buffing it so that I can show you what it looks like versus this one. So that's the back and that's the sides. So that's what we're going to turn this one into now. So I'll put that aside as I want to leave that for about 10 minutes for the Renaissance wax to cure. And in the meantime, I'll bring over my polishing papers. And I'm going to start with my 400 grit, and I'm just going to lightly sand this top part over here, because this part's got texture, but I do want to give it a little bit of shine. And then I'm going to sand the edges. Now you don't have to be pedantic about your sanding here. We just want to sand it enough that we get rid of some grit, and so that we can get a decent shine on it later on. So just make sure that you do a good enough sand that you're going to get away any smears and things that you might have had, because I had a few over there. And just sand all of your edges. Then you want to sand the smeared parts of the bead. Don't overdo it, because you might you might sand right through the smear and expose the under part, which isn't very good. And then just give the back a light sand as well, because you want that to be shined up with some of the Renaissance wax as well. And the Renaissance wax, by doing this, you're going to highlight the texture even more when you put the Renaissance wax on, because some of it's going to be matte and some of it's going to be shiny. Then you'll move on through your grits. So I'm going to go up to 600 now, and I'll go all the way up to an 8000. Now you can use wet dry sandpaper. I'm using polishing papers because it is my preferred sandpaper, but any sandpaper will work. Just start with a 400 and go as high as you possibly can, minimum 1000, preferably higher than that, like an 8000. And just continue sanding until you've gone through all of your grits. Then I'll show you how to apply the Renaissance wax, and then we can get on to stringing. Okay, so it's been sanded, and so it's got a light sheen to it, and you could leave it like this if you wanted to, but I want to apply some Renaissance wax now, just to give it a bit more of a shine. So I'm going to bring over an old polishing paper and grab some Renaissance wax. I don't want too much. And I'll apply it to the back, the sides and the front. And then if you have a buffing wheel, definitely I would use it. But if you don't have a buffing wheel, that's fine. All you have to do then is just hand buff it. A buffing wheel is better though, so if you have one, I would use it. But apply it to all the sides and the front and the back, and then leave it to cure for at least 10 minutes before you start handling it. But ideally you want to let it cure for about half an hour, because otherwise you can end up dulling the Renaissance wax and it can actually start looking really not so good. So definitely leave it for a minimum of 10 minutes before handling. Okay, so you can see the colours are really being brought out. So now I'm going to go buff that, and then I'll leave it for half an hour, and then we can start stringing. Okay, so I've left these for about 24 hours just to let the Renaissance wax set. You can leave it for about half an hour to set, but I had other things to do, so I've left it for around 24 hours. So now what I want to do is I want to finish up stringing these. So what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using this rubber cord, and I got a ready-made necklace from Fire Mountain Gems, so you can see that we have the clasp there, and we can just string it on. So I'll go around to the bales on the back and slide this through. There we go. So that will fit nicely through the bale. Then you just close the clasp like this, and it's a nice easy way to finish off your necklace, and it looks quite nice. I think that the rubber cord looks pretty good with the zebra pendant. And so that's basically all there is to this tutorial. That's the pendant, and here is the other one. I'm not going to string this one as well since these are basically the exact same, but basically that's it for the tutorial. And so I do hope that it was helpful to you. If it was, please do let me know, as that is always helpful to me. And please do share pictures of what you've made using this project. You can share them on Facebook, or just tag me if you release them to a group or onto your personal page, and then I can check them out and see what they look like. Please do comment on what you like about this project and whether you would like me to do more projects similar to this. And as always, I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.